All right, cheers and salutations. Welcome to Chicanime. My name is Kit. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and hit that ring bell notification. That way, all you lovely, beautiful people are made aware when we upload new content upon our, you guessed it, YouTube channel. And today, we have ourselves a fun video titled "What the Anime Didn't Show You from Subaru's Past." ReZero, Starting Life in Another World, Episode 4, Cut Content. So, without further ado, since I'm in charge of the ones and twos, let's check this video out and enjoy it in a 3, a 2, and an uno. And please be sure to support the original content creator, of course.
With 29 minutes of pure emotional build-up serving to cover a single chapter in the light novel, episode 29 doesn't have very much in the way of cut content. It does, however, serve to provide a lot of context behind how Subaru acts throughout Season 1, something that I'll sprinkle in with the minor events that were left behind from this episode. So let's take a look at what the anime didn't show from Subaru's past, plus how it relates back to the Subaru we saw from Season 1. Let's begin. Episode 29, Parent and Child, covering Chapter 4 of Volume 10 of the light novel. Since it had been a few months since Subaru had started skipping school, the average morning for him now consisted of waking up and watching the clock slowly inch its way towards 8 AM. This was because school for him started at 8:30, and given where he lived, it would take at least 20 minutes for him to get there by jogging. So if Subaru really wanted to make it to school on time, then he would have to leave before 8 AM. Once that time had passed though, there was really no point in trying to muster up the courage to go since he would just be late anyway. It was a cycle of delinquency that always began with a deep sense of self-hatred, one that would normally subside once the clock struck 8. But that didn't seem to be the case today. For some reason, Subaru just couldn't shake this clinging sense of guilt. It was an abnormal feeling that he'd been carrying ever since he woke up. Something was very clearly different about him, and even though his parents were acting the same way they always did, they too seemed to be a little bit strange. Subaru tried to recall what happened the day before, but that just seemed to make the discomfort he was feeling even worse. It was as if his usual feelings of guilt had now escalated into pain. A pain that wouldn't go away even when he went for the walk with his dad. In fact, just being in close proximity to him while in public caused enough pain to make it feel like his chest was about to implode.
I heard that's a thing in Japan, people who become shut-ins. It's a rather unfortunate thing.
That's why Subaru looked so troubled when he was walking beside him. In any case, the longer this walk went on for, the more people they came across that seemed to know Kenichi. The shop owner, the housewife, and even the senior high school girl all came up to say hi to Subaru's dad. They were moments intended to highlight the stark contrast between Subaru and his father. It's also how Subaru's inferiority complex becomes more apparent, especially when the old man brought up stories of how Kenichi used to be such a troublemaker when he was younger. There was even a brief conversation that further compared the two's popularity by using the number of contacts each had as a scale. If you remember in Season 1, Subaru didn't have many contacts in his phone, likely due to his lonely lifestyle while in middle school. On the other hand, Kenichi boasted about having pages and pages filled with different girls' contact info. Of course, this was a rather odd thing for Subaru's dad to be saying, but
yeah, that's not a real cool flex for a married guy.
Kenichi made it clear that his love was intended for his family alone. This caused the pain in Subaru's chest to emerge even stronger than before, leading Subaru to finally realize where it was this pain was coming from. It was becoming more and more apparent that it stemmed from being around his parents. For some strange reason, the closer he was to either of them, the more potent the feeling became. He thought perhaps his guilt had finally caught up to him and was now overwhelming his entire body. In any case, it seemed to be related to the topic that Kenichi wanted to speak to Subaru about next. As we know, Kenichi felt it was an appropriate day to finally confront Subaru about his new lifestyle. It's not like he was blaming him for doing anything wrong though. In fact, if Subaru wanted to take a couple years to work through his own problems, then that was something that Kenichi was completely fine with. Even if he was spending his days sitting around his room doing nothing, so long as he was working towards getting through whatever it was he was going through, then Kenichi was completely okay with it. Where he would have been upset was if Subaru had given up. It's a series of lines that tie all the way back to episode 18, back to when Subaru was trying to get Rem to run away with him. In this episode,
You can't run away, man. As much as you may try, you cannot run away.
There was a moment where Subaru told Rem all about how he did absolutely nothing before he came here. How all his powerlessness and incompetence was the direct result of becoming this empty shell of a person. This of course referring to his life of isolation. But to add even more to that, knowing how Subaru has always been compared to his father, that's something that adds even more context to what Subaru was saying here. What Subaru was doing back in his own world was something that no one could really even call living. That's why he felt he could finally start to live again when he found himself in this new world. It's also why he seemed to be so accepting of his new circumstances. He felt he could start this new life as a new person who wasn't just recognized as Kenichi's son. It was an opportunity to finally become someone special. But after going through all those hardships prior to saving Emilia, that's when he realized that nothing about him had changed at all. He was just the same old person who only cared about how others saw him. So, as we saw Subaru yelling to Rem how nothing about him had changed, we couldn't really fully understand what he meant. But now we know that the reason he cared so much about what others thought about him was because of that sense of inferiority he got from growing up as Kenichi's son. This was just one of many different reveals to Subaru's character, which explains why he acted a certain way in a previous episode.
So, I never really had that situation growing up as a kid, like, living in my father's shadows or grandfather's shadows, because my father, he died before I was born. And, my grandpa, he would occasionally talk about what he did back in the day. But, for the most part, like I was, I had a good life growing up, being encouraged, but I can understand where Subaru's coming from, maybe he was his father was the popular guy in the community, in the school, and, there's a lot that comes with it, being in that shadow of a titan, but that's the thing, you can't live in the shadow of the past.
Another would be from the time when he was working at the mansion. If you remember from when he was just starting out, Subaru would have these sudden outbursts of excessively theatrical behavior, something that became more frequent the more stressed he was. This was because this was the only way that Subaru knew how to interact with others. You see, when he had closed himself off from everyone who wasn't his family, the only person Subaru could use as a reference to build relationships was his father. The thing is, his dad always acted in this over-the-top manner that normally wouldn't be suited to meeting new people. So, as we saw in the high school flashback, Subaru tried to use this extravagant behavior to make new friends.
That's not gonna work, buddy.
But that only ended up making the environment he was in more stressful, thus causing his outbursts to become more frequent, just like how it did in the mansion. It was a tendency that Kenichi saw he needed to correct right here. So he told Subaru that there was a time and place for his high-strung behavior. Even though Subaru had never seen it before, Kenichi did have a side to him that was closer to one of common sense and appropriate conduct. One that Subaru never realized he needed since he thought he could simply mimic his father's behavior to become popular. When we move on to the next half of the episode, Subaru bowing before he left his room was to commemorate the 5 years he spent in the only place he could call his own. He knew that this would be the last time he would ever see it, so he felt the need to show it a small gesture of respect before leaving. As Subaru went to go see his mother, she was shocked to find him actually wearing his uniform. You see, when Subaru came into the house asking to know where his uniform was, Naoko initially thought that Subaru wanted to burn it. So while Subaru was upstairs getting ready, Naoko had spent the time in the kitchen preparing potatoes and skewers so that she could use the fire from his uniform to start a barbecue. Subaru couldn't believe that this was his own mother's reaction to him wanting to get ready for school. But I guess it was just that unlikely for him to actually want to go. In any case, when Subaru was offered the mayonnaise, he eventually did end up taking it. It's not like he wasn't a fan of mayo, he just didn't like it as much as his parents did, which is honestly still a much bigger fan than the average person. In fact, there was actually a collection of mayo lids stuffed into the corner of his room. A total of 776, which displayed his love for the product.
What?
But with this newest one, his collection was now at 777s. A rather decent accomplishment if you're not comparing him to Kenichi, who recently reached quadruple sevens. Anyway, those two scenes were pretty much the only ones not mentioned during the parts with Subaru's mother, and everything after this was pretty much identical. So there's not much else to speak to in the way of cut content. But I do want to talk a little bit more about the context this episode gives to Subaru's past actions. Aside from the ones that I pointed out already, there's a user on Reddit who outlined quite a few more of these instances, and I'll link their comment in the description so that you can read for yourself what they are. But the one that I want to share in this video goes back to a scene from episode 13, back to when Subaru proclaimed himself to be Amelia's knight.
And then he got smacked around.
When Julius intervened to tell him that this was a title he was unworthy of having, Subaru's reply was one that just projected his own problems onto the current situation. He wanted to believe that being a knight wasn't that big of a deal at all, to believe that it was just a position that Julius was born into, something he received by sharing the same name as his father. As we now know though, we can apply these words back to how Subaru felt in his old life, to how he felt while growing up as Kenichi's son, a name that he felt he had to live up to. So what Subaru was saying about Julius was actually how he felt about himself, especially the part about trying to use his dad's name to act all superior. But yeah, there's definitely plenty more situations like this from Season 1, so if you happen to come across any yourself, then feel free to leave a comment down below. Now, before I go, don't forget to subscribe so that you can see exactly what was missed from Season 2 every week. And if you missed any of my previous episodes before, then those are all linked down below. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, and
Okay, so not too much was missed out, but I think if we kind of looked into Subaru being an outcast just a little bit more, or either that, him dealing with the emotions of his father. I mean, maybe there's more books that go into that series about it. I am looking forward to it because I did find out that in October of 2024, Season 3 of ReZero, Starting Life in Another World, begins again. So I am looking forward to that. And of course, seeing where our boy Atto, who likes to get blotto, comes out. But okay, this was a very interesting video that really went into detail about all the good stuff, but also, but I do find it. I'm actually looking at a little bit of some of the background, but at least according to from what I've heard from the author, because kind of looking into this, because I kind of had to refresh myself on ReZero, Starting Life in Another World. At least from what I heard, that Subaru, if he never got isekai'd, his father would have helped him through his trauma, which would have been interesting to see. I would have liked to have seen that. And also, by the way, shout out to his mom who thought, hey, if we're gonna burn your uniform, let's go ahead and do a barbecue, which would have been great to see. So hey, there you go. Shout out to Subaru's mom. So, all right, folks. Pretty soon we'll be checking out another anime very soon. Hopefully, if you're a patron supporter, you get to vote and volunteer me into what series I get to check out next. So, without further ado, since I'm charged of the ones and twos, I'll see you all on the flip side. Please take good care of yourselves and be well.